Darren W. Freeman is a former law enforcer, top-rated criminal law instructor, and author of 9 books, including Plated Armour, a gripping thriller that exposes the thin blue line between duty and corruption in law enforcement, seen through the eyes of a senior and rookie cop. And Darren is on the line with us here just now. How are you today?
Doing great, Toby. How are you?
I'm excellent, thank you. Now, without giving too much away about the book, obviously, just take it from there if you can.
Well, it was put together after the last 2 years of the U.S. administration with Department of Homeland Security. And with the amount of, unfortunately, illegal immigrants coming in and the trafficking that was occurring, which is just crazy amount of trafficking coming to the country, and the amount of money being made on both sides of the border. So I looked at it, researched it, and I figured this was something that I know was occurring to a certain point. I just took it a step further, where I was going over more other interagencies with issues, money coming in, always changing hands with someone. And there's corruption everywhere. I don't care what country you're in, what government you're in. It could be a local city, it could be a county, a state. There's always corruption there. It's going to be there. So I just took it a step further and changed up the normal programming of corruption in law enforcement.
So how did you approach developing the characters in the book to reflect the sort of complexities of law enforcement in such a high stakes environment?
Well, I basically went off my background as a law enforcement former commander. So I was teaching law for years at the colleges here in Central Florida in the U.S. Basically, one of my experiences in law enforcement. I did internal affairs for almost 10 years. I've investigated law enforcement officers, administrators, county officials, and stuff like that. So I just drew off all that, my own experience, and basically put it into a subject matter which hasn't been written about before. It's very explosive, and it just went from there.
And you say you based it on your own life, and of course you're a former law enforcement officer, so how much of it is based on your real life experience and how much of it is purely fictional?
The corruption part of my investigation is probably about 50% of what I've done in law enforcement and outside of law enforcement as an investigator, just looking in on the outside, looking at corruption where you normally don't see it, but then all of a sudden it more or less comes up. People can never, I'll put it this way, no matter where you're at, there's always a trail of something if you're doing something wrong. There's always documentation somewhere. All I did was some of the instances where I did backgrounds where I ended up taking out a city manager, a police chief, a captain, all involved from taking money to just unethical behavior in their positions, taking kickbacks, taking things of that nature. This is just went a step further, as in the full criminal end of it, actually getting money and moving people and making money off their pain and their languish, wanting to come into a country. So it was more or less exposing what does go on, just in a more grander scale, more like right in your face type thing.
And with your background, how does it feel to transition from dealing with criminals in, I guess, real life and in your career to crafting them in fiction?
Well, there's criminals everywhere, a lot more with the pen than with the gun.
Yeah.
But basically just, I wrote 9 other books. And this is the first book I'm actually pushing real hard for the publishing company. It's a really great book. With my action, I just felt I usually do nonfiction, investigative books, criminal law books, stuff like that. This is more of a fiction with a tab of reality to it, just going a step further. So I just took from what I've done in law enforcement and just expanded off that.
And how did you find the transition from previously writing mainly non-fiction stuff to writing a fiction book?
That was a little bit of a task. So I'm so used to doing nonfiction because it's much easier for me. And then coming up with fiction, I got to create a little more storyline. I got to create something that wasn't there. So when it comes to nonfiction, it's easy. I know the law. I teach the law. I write books on it. It's good for me to articulate and the knowledge of it. But the nonfiction stuff, I had to pull upon all the experiences I dealt with rookie officers, seeing young officers right out of the academy lose their careers for unethical behavior, illegal behavior, taking money, to, dealing with administrators that lost their career for doing very stupid things. Minor things you look at as ridiculous, but ethically, they couldn't keep those positions anymore. So that's what kind of rounded me to when I started doing more of my storytelling, was going into the stuff I actually dealt with people.
And do you think that even though it was mostly non-fiction books you'd written before, you still had experience in writing and maybe would have found it easier than a complete rookie would?
Totally. I was basically looking at this from, I couldn't stick too hard to to the law because it wouldn't make the book somewhat boring.
Yeah.
I mean, as in certain things. So I had to jump forward and just make it, high octane forward. What's the worst case scenario that I could walk into with another review officer working a midnight shift somewhere, anywhere in my city, anywhere in a waterfront that I can come onto? And this would be it. This tries you. I always say, when it comes to a law enforcement officer doing their job in any situation, I can't create fear in an artificial environment. And what I mean by this, Toby, as a teacher, we train in law enforcement, same thing in England, same thing all around the world.
Yeah.
They have training scenarios where they have you get dressed up, carry fake guns, you fake. It's all training, but you don't know what you're actually going to do until you're put in that situation, dropped in. I've seen officers run. I had some people freeze that you would never ever suspect doing that. So no matter how you look at things, I can't create fear in an artificial environment and training. So all the training in the world you can have, when a tire hits the pavement, you might not be able to step up to the plate.
What do you find the most fulfilling part about writing? And is it maybe a nice break from having spent much of your career investigating crime and teaching law enforcement? It's nice to maybe have a creative outlet.
It does. People don't realize that law enforcement officers deal in people's misery. That's what we do. And when you really feel that in there, you call 911, you call emergency services because you have issues, you have problems. So, taking that from one level to the other is, transitioning over, it does, I should say, affect how you look at things, especially when it comes to my writing. So I had to make it writing where it wasn't too like shocking to people, but something that's really going to have them on the edge of their seat going, wow, I mean, this probably can happen or could happen or has happened at a certain level.
Of the 9 other books that you wrote, so not including this latest one, which one would you say you're the most proud of, or is maybe the most interesting one?
The Darkest Hour. I came up with that. When I was in law enforcement, I should say a rookie officer, but I was a younger officer. A friend of mine was another officer with me, working the same shift, working the same location. I had a week earlier transferred off to a special operations unit. He stayed on the same patrol shift. A week later, he was shot and killed in a cemetery in our jurisdiction, like 6 a.m. in the morning. And what happened was when he was shot and killed, I came to work the other division. It was terrible. But he was by himself in a cemetery at 6 a.m. When they found him, there was like turmoil between, did he commit suicide? Was he murdered? Because everyone had their own little theme of why he was out there. And basically, it took me a few years. That's why, it's Darkest Hour. And it came back out that he was murdered, as I always said along the way that he was. He was jumped and his firearm was taken from him by several people. And he was executed with his own gun. So that meant a lot to me because he was my friend. And people had said that he had committed suicide, which I know he didn't. I knew he didn't do that. And it proved it. It took a few years, but it proved it. So I'm really proud of that one. It's one of my first books.
You've written across a variety of genres as well. So how do you decide which genre you're going to dive into next?
Well, I'll give you an example. Looking at the books, I look at what goes on in society in general, and I try and take out what I can utilize and research and turn it into something that would be interesting to someone to read. That's why I do love nonfiction, because it's fact-based and it's right there in your face. So I just look at it more of a broad. Someone says, what genre do you write? And I'm like, genre of books. I'd say the genre that sells. So I don't limit myself on one area of writing. I just can't. See, I'm so diverse in stuff that I do in my personal life. And the stuff I've dealt with politically and stuff like that in different areas, that I keep my mind very broad when I look at things before I'm going to write about topics. So this is my second book of, I should say, fiction. The other one was called oh my God, I've got my own book for a second.
Oh no.
The Last Bloodlord. And that was a really good book. That was my first fiction book. It was a great ride, and it's done really well.
With all the previous criminal investigations you've been a part of, have you ever thought, oh, this would make a great plot for a book?
Portion of it came from definitely my imagination. Looking at different plots, what can go on, and a lot of stuff's been written already.
Yeah.
Unless you want to go to a full extreme or one way or the other. I just want to decide to come up with basically a plot that basically keeps you on the edge of your seat. So basically, I look at what reality is, and with the way things are now in the world, reality is turned upside down right now. How things go and politics, everything's crazy right now. So anything is possible. And I like to get people back to reading books again, getting off doing the Game Boy and stuff like that. I mean, playing, start reading books again, not just computer work. You know what I'm saying? Get back to the old brick and mortar and crack a book open.
For this book, Plated Armor, you've had an interest in seeing it adapted into a film. So Can you tell us a bit more about that dream?
I've gotten some calls from people for an option. Option would be like for maybe a TV movie, that nature. I'm talking to a few different people. I would love Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Apple. My doors are open. The book hasn't even come out yet. I'm getting phone calls, which is pretty cool. We got a lot of organic movement with what we're promoting right now. And I'm looking to do a book supporting tour on this too. My first time doing it too, which is really cool. I'd love to come to the UK because you guys do carry my books
Oh, yes.
at many stores over there. And I'd love to come over here and see my, English cousins. I've not been
Yeah.
over there yet.
Well, what would we be able to expect from your visit if you were to come over?
Well, it'd basically be a book tour where I would promote the books. I know we're out. I sent some stuff over to where we're at over in London right now. You can buy our books at